So after all the wait, all the speculation, the back and forth, not knowing, we're finally here. UFC 249. We didn't get exactly what we wanted with Tony Ferguson versus Khabib, but we're getting Tony Ferguson versus Justin Gaethje, right? Which is, man, a damn good fight. We don't know where it's going to be either, right? So you know, Dana White obviously came out and said it's going to be at this undisclosed location where, he knows where it's going to be, obviously. The fighters are unsure of where it's going to be. He's working out all the travel logistics, and, he's going to make everything happen. So after all the back and forth, all this time we had already done without being able to see any fights, then, we hear about Khabib being locked down in Russia. We don't know how it's going to turn out. And Conor throwing his name in the ring and then pulling it back out and everything. So finally, this is what we get. You know what? It's a damn good fight, right? You cannot be disappointed with this fight. So a lot of stuff's been going out about it already, obviously. A lot of people have been talking about it. But I only heard one person mention something so far that I found very interesting. Only one person mentioned the idea, and they just kind of threw the question out there. Could this be a letdown fight for Tony Ferguson? And I thought about it for a second, and I'm like, that's an interesting question, because on the surface, this kind of fits the criteria of what you would consider for a letdown fight, right? Now, not by the opponent, right? Justin Gaethje is a world-class opponent. Fans know him, everything, know that down there. But think about this for a second. So you got Tony Ferguson, 36 years old, won the interim belt 3 fights ago, I think, against Kevin Lee, right? So he wins this interim belt. Naturally, you would figure that he assumes his next fight after winning the interim belt is going to be to fight for the real belt, right? Pretty safe assumption. It's what normally happens. Okay? So he doesn't get that. As a matter of fact, he's fought 2 fights since then. Once against Pettis, and then one recently against Donald Cerrone. Okay? He was stripped of the interim belt because of a freak accident, right? That was back when he was supposed to fight Khabib for the 4th time, like just a couple days out from the fight or whatever, trips over some video cable while he's doing a media event, blows out his knee or something crazy, and can't make the fight. So they strip him of the belt. Doesn't get it. Okay, so I'm thinking about it for a second. It's like everybody considers Khabib and Tony number 1 and number 2. There's some debate about who you want to put in which spot, but pretty much if you're talking about 155, people consider them number 1 and number 2. This was supposed to be the 5th time, or this was the 5th time this fight was scheduled. The 5th time. So the 5th time this fight fell through. So not only do you have a man who's fighting his biggest rival in the division, as far as, who's considered the best at 155, the absolute king of the mountain, but then you also have it for the belt, and Tony's never had the belt. You have to know, you have to believe that that's this man's absolute dream, is to win that belt. And then on top of that, that it's just like he already felt 3 fights ago at this point, right, that he was supposed to be fighting for once he won that interim belt. Oh, you look at the names on his resume. Barboza, Dos Anjos, Kevin Lee, Pettis, Cerrone, all the stoppages, the way he goes in there and dominates these fights. And once again, he's not fighting for the belt. And once again, he's not fighting Khabib. And you think about it for a second, you're like, on the surface, absolutely, that sounds like something that could turn out to be a letdown fight, right? Right beforehand, it's so close, all of a sudden everything just starts to fall apart, right? You think about it, you're like, man, this fight really is cursed. But you think about it, you're like, yeah, you know what? Okay, I understand that. That could happen. And then I thought about it for a second, I had to check myself. I had to think about it. I was like, whoa, dude, you're talking about Tony Ferguson here. The man is an absolute maniac. There's no way in the world he's ever going to come into a fight unprepared. There's no way in the world he's ever going to overlook an opponent. The man's a savage, right? Think about it for a second. Have you ever seen the training videos he does? Remember in the build-up to his fight, his 4th fight with Khabib, where he's kicking the steel pole, the metal pole, with his shin, talking about, it toughens my shins up, gets me ready for the fight. Where he's flipping over the big monster truck tires with his back in these crazy positions, doing deadlifts, breakdancing with the resistance bands and these big metal balls and stuff. The man is insane. He trains crazy because he absolutely loves to fight. He loves to fight. Is he disappointed that it's not for the belt? Absolutely. He hasn't said it, but he has to be. There's no way he couldn't be. Is he disappointed that he's not getting to fight Khabib to try to settle this once and for all? Absolutely. Absolutely he is. Right? But that doesn't mean that he's not a professional, and that doesn't mean he's not a maniac and a savage who loves to fight. There's no way in the world that he's not going to show up 100% prepared to do everything that he feels he needs to do to win that fight. Now, obviously, it's quick in the sense of he's got to turn around and come with a different game plan because you're dealing with a completely different style of fighter. Nobody fights like Khabib, right, and things like that. But that's a whole other story. As far as overlooking Gaethje, as far as coming in on an emotional letdown and not being prepared, never going to happen with Tony. I don't believe it. I will not believe. No way. This isn't going to be. Think about the most recent time we saw this happen, right? It was in boxing, but with Anthony Joshua versus Ruiz. Last second replacement. Andy Ruiz steps in. Joshua just looks sluggish, unprepared, kind of overlooked the opponent, ends up getting knocked out, right? Happens all the time. Fighting is historically has a bunch of these fights to speak of, particularly with boxing going back further. But some guys, they're just mentally, it's just not going to happen because that's what it all is. It's all in your head. Mentally, I think it might be impossible to be mentally tougher or mentally stronger than Tony Ferguson. No way he overlooks Justin Gaethje. He's going to come in here 100% prepared. This fight has all the makings of being something great. So, can't wait to see how this one plays out. Really looking forward to it. But absolutely guaranteed, bet everything you own on the fact that Tony Ferguson shows up on fight night and he's ready to go.